Joining me on the phone right now is, can I call you the fabulous Russo brothers? Have you heard that term before?
We have not heard it before, but you are more than welcome to refer to us that way.
Well, I don't know if you were fans of like old school 80s WWF wrestling. They used to have the fabulous Russo brothers, but I think it fits in this case here.
It's close enough.
We'll take it.
So you guys are here. You're promoting Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier on the Blu-ray here. Here's something really amazing about this movie. Depending on what website you go to, fan lists, experts, comic book guys, whatever, it's continuously rated the #1 movie ranked out of all the Marvel movies. How does that feel?
It's great. It's very exciting. I mean, look, it was, it was a labor of love for us. We're comic book fanatics. I've been collecting since I was a kid. Cap's one of my, favorite characters from when I was a kid. So it's like a 30-year dream come true to be able to work on a movie like this. And we're excited that the passion translated and that, people love the interpretation of the character, and the tone and the level of action that we brought to the movie.
I mean, we were just like, when we came to this movie, we were very aware of just how high Marvel had set the bar with the work that they had been doing. We had been enormous fans of their movies. So it was like we knew we really had to deliver something special to be able to compete and belong in that company. So, we were just really grateful everything worked. Now,
you're also signed on to do the third one, which is amazing, and we'll get to that one in a little bit here. But with the Blu-ray that's coming out, what extra did you put on there? Maybe some stuff that you shot separately, or is there added scenes back into it? What's in there?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we certainly have deleted scenes. We have there's a lot of documentary footage of the shooting of the film.
We do a commentary with Marcus and McFeely, who wrote the movie, and it's we talk a lot about what went into everything in terms of making the film.
So there's a lot of behind the scenes tidbits. How we fight viz the movie, how we pre-viz the movie. Tons and tons of extras. It's Marvel goes out of their way to make sure that their Blu-rays are packed with extra information for their fans.
Did they give it to you for free, or did you have to pay for it?
We don't have one yet. So can we tell you in like a week?
You'd be surprised how many people who are involved with certain projects, have their fingerprints all over it, and they don't get any of the simple things that you would think you would get for free. I talked to some of the writers from The Simpsons, and they would tell me they never once got the toys for the characters that they created or the storylines that they did. They had to buy every single thing they worked on.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, sadly.
You guys had an amazing history just getting to where you are right now as far as, I'm not going to say that it isn't skill, but you had some good luck with some of your early projects when Steven Soderbergh got you for Welcome to Collinwood.
Yeah.
And you got to work with George Clooney. How great was that?
It was fantastic. Clooney is truly one of the best people you will ever meet. Exceedingly charming, very fun, but also extremely loyal and really looks out for people. And he and Soderbergh took us under their wings. Soderbergh saw our first movie at a film festival in Park City called Slam Dance in 1997. Then he and George formed Section 8, and we were the first film that they brought in there to get produced. And then the way that we got the film made was George stepped up and took a role in the movie, which was really admirable of him, and now we have a career.
Now, I remember seeing that movie because it had some big names for a movie that came out of nowhere, like William H. Macy and George Clooney and Isaiah Washington from The Wire. And I watched it on DVD when it came out, but were you kind of surprised that it didn't do as well as you thought it would in the box office?
Well, it was, that movie was a little bit of an experiment in the sense that it was made at, Soderbergh and Clooney were making the first Ocean's 11 for Warner Brothers. So they were delivering to the studio a really sort of unique film and something, a type of a film with a lot of star power that only they could deliver, people like they could deliver. And so what they said was, Soderbergh has always had ambitions to work on smaller stuff as well as major stuff. And he told Warner Brothers basically he wanted to produce some smaller movies, and we were the first of the movies that he wanted to produce. So we were a little bit of an experiment in the Warner Brothers system in the sense that we were a very small movie that was made at a very big studio. And I think part of the problem with that film was in the release was, a big studio like that didn't necessarily know how to handle a small movie. And we, as a result, it just didn't have the run it could have had or maybe even should have had. But nonetheless, it's a movie we're really proud of and happy with.
Did this lead to Lucky, or was the following year, or was Lucky just
Yeah.
totally a different project?
No, the way we got involved with Lucky is Kevin Riley was running FX at the time, and this was at the advent of risky cable television shows.
Right.
And they were looking for some independent filmmakers to come in and work on Lucky. Kevin and the Cullen brothers, who created the show, the Cullen brothers, not the Coen brothers, came in and sat in the edit bay and watched the cut of Collinwood before we had released the movie, and then asked us to direct the pilot of Lucky. And still one of our favorite pieces of material that we've worked on.
And I liked Lucky. I think it was the right show at the wrong time because FX was just starting to cut its teeth. But nowadays it would fit in great with a lineup like of Louis and Fargo and all. It would fit in perfectly.
You're right. That's the same thing we say. Is that show was a couple of years ahead of its time. It's a very dark show. Very. It's a comedic show, but the pilot ends with Corbett crying, covered in blood.
Yeah.
After he's been robbed because he was trying to pay back his in-laws the money for a wedding ring, from his wife who died from an overdose. So it wasn't the cheeriest of comedies, but it was certainly avant-garde and cutting edge, really well executed. We thought the performances were really strong in the show, and by saying really well executed, I mean on a writing front. We thought the Cullens wrote a great script, and you're right. I just feel like it showed up a few years early for people to actually understand the tone of the show.
A wonderful cast too: John Corbett, Billy Gardell, and Craig Robinson. All.
Were you a fan of John Corbett from Northern Exposure?
Oh yeah, big fan. Love the show.
You guys have the storybook career of where one project opens the door to so many other things, because you just said you did the pilot for Lucky, which attracted the attention of Ron Howard and then got you on board for Arrested Development.
Yeah, it's amazing how these things work. I mean, it's almost surreal or bizarre, but that pilot for Lucky, again, even though the show didn't work on air, it was very popular within the industry. Like everybody watched that pilot, and we would take meeting after meeting about people that loved that pilot. And one of those meetings ended up being with Imagine, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer's company, and they were making Arrested Development at the time. And David Nevins, who was running the company for them at the time, we met with him and Mitch, and that led to us making the pilot for Arrested Development.
And that won you an Emmy, which is amazing in and of itself, not just working on this show that would eventually become a cult classic. You won an Emmy for the pilot, but then you two were directing episodes individually.
Yeah, we would roll into, we've been directing together on features and pilots, but then when we got to episodes, we started going into an individual rotation. And initially why we did that was, the Directors Guild, while we were able, it's very hard to get a co-director status from the Directors Guild because they guard the idea of one director per project very strictly because they don't want to set a precedent for people trying to chisel into the director's roles or trying to share credit. They don't want a powerful producer or a powerful actor being able to leverage in on a co-directing or something. So they have these very strict rules, and while we were able to qualify for to get approval to co-direct, when we got to episodes, they won't let you split DGA minimum, Directors Guild minimum. We would each have to be paid Directors Guild minimum, but the studio who is producing the TV shows, they typically, unless a show is a massive hit, they won't pay more than Directors Guild minimum for somebody to direct an episode. So we found ourselves in this interesting situation where we said, well, I guess we have to rotate on episodes, and it ended up working out really well for us.
Do you see any residuals from your work with Arrested Development?
It's that's one of those shows that it's one of those miraculous money losers. Even though
I think we actually got a bill from Fox where we owe them money.
So you weren't excited when they had the big rebirth on Netflix there?
Look, it certainly helps inch the show towards the black.
Some mythical profitability in the future, yeah.
But no, it's one of those shows that apparently was universally loved and critically acclaimed, but has yet to make a dollar.
I'm talking with Anthony and Joe Russo, the directors of Captain America 2 Winter Soldier. It's coming out here on Blu-ray. One thing that I noticed in your history, you're big MASH fans. I could have not been more excited when I read that.
Yeah. We grew up watching MASH with our parents every night for years. It was, every week that it was on for years, it was like an event. And, so few people remember event television.
Right.
But, you used to have to back in the day turn on your TV when the show was on and sit down and watch it. Otherwise, you couldn't watch it.
How dare you?
Yeah. So this was, so it was always a big deal for us to sit down and watch MASH, and we loved that show. And it ran for so long that it occupied such an important aspect of, cultural aspect for us. We remember watching that show for many, many years.
I think that's key what you just said about watching it with your parents. It was more of your parents' show for people of our generation. That to the point where I didn't even know it ended because in New York it ran on Channel 5 so much that when I got older, I'm like, oh, I love this show. And then my dad tells me it ended like 6 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Captain America 2 on Blu-ray, that's what you're calling about here, which is fantastic. So much went into this movie. A lot of the Marvel movies do go over 2 hours there. How much did you shoot that you actually had to whittle out of the movie? And what do you think you took out that might have affected the story?
Well, look, while we've got a couple special scenes, that were deleted on the DVD, we spent a long time in development prepping the movie, and we worked very closely with Marcus and McFeely, the writers. And what happened was we by the time we got to shooting, we had a really tight script. So the final edit of the movie is unusually and remarkably similar to the shooting script. So there isn't a whole lot that we cut out of the movie, to be honest with you. Just simply because we had sort of cooked things up well. It was look, the movie was a huge opportunity for Joe and I.
Right.
We did not want to spend any resources on anything that wasn't going to be on the screen. So we were very, this is our history as like no-budget indie filmmakers. We wanted to be very frugal and very smart about where we put the money. So we wanted a very tight script going into shooting. And, other than a couple of really nice character beats, especially one between Scarlett Johansson and Sam Jackson, which is on the DVD, there isn't a whole lot that was cut out.
So you got to do everything that you set out to do with Captain America 2.
Yeah, we're very, very happy with how the process went, yeah.
I don't think there's any spoilers at this point as far as Captain America 2, unless you just haven't seen it, which, by the way, go out and buy the Blu-ray. There's a scene, there's stuff in the middle of the credits, stuff at the end of the credits, which all ties into the Marvel Universe. But there was a scene where you guys used the name Doctor Strange. Was that just a nod towards the fans, or is it tying into other things?
Well, we're guys who love Easter eggs. Not only do we love comic books, we've been collecting comic books since we were kids, but, we worked on shows like Arrested Development and Community where, it was our job every week to bury, pop culture Easter eggs in the shows, and our brains just think that way. So we had the opportunity to name drop some superheroes, and we were pushing for Doctor Strange to be one of them.
Right.
We knew that he was in the development slate at the time, and they said we could do it, so we did it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, then at the other end scene then with the twins, and I'm guessing they're going to be involved in the future Avenger movies, but do we maybe see them in Captain America 3?
We can't comment on any characters that might or may or may not appear in Captain America 3.
Gotcha.
Beyond Captain America.
So there's no point in asking about Hawkeye or Crossbones.
Who? Yeah.
Anthony and Joseph Russo, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. Best of luck with Captain America 3. I'd like to talk to you again and then revisit this interview and tell me if Hawkeye and Crossbones is in this movie.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.